Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. This webinar is supported by insKru, the leading learning community platform in Thailand. And my name is Tawan Sangthong, or Kru Tony, an English teacher at Phanomtuanpittayakom School in Kanchanaburi, Thailand. So today I will be the moderator of the webinar today on the topic, how to teach students to be effective users of the English language. And first of all, let me introduce our today's speakers. Well, the first speaker is from Singapore, and now he's working as Assistant General Secretary at Singapore Teachers Union. Please welcome Kru Kai Lo. Hello, Kru Kai.
Hi, hello, good evening everybody. Sawadee
Hi.
Hi, hello.
All right, and our two speakers are Thai government teachers. One of them is one of the first 9 master trainers of the Regional English Training Center, who awarded the certificate in advanced English at level C1 and won many awards such as the Regional OBEC Awards Active Teacher. Please welcome Kru Golf. Hi, Kru Golf.
Hi guys, and good evening to all of you who are watching. My name is Patipan Jinawong. You can call me Golf or you can address me to Golf. That is fine for me. So I'm a teacher at Khamthieng Anussorn School, which is a primary school. So basically I'm teaching younger kids. Right, that would be all from me.
All right, thank you, Teacher Golf. And next one, the other speaker was one of the former Thailand representative to the United Nations and won many national awards. And one of them is Teachers Council of Thailand Research Awards. Please welcome Kru Game.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So my name is Saharat Laksanasut, and you can call me Game. Playing game like this. I am a government teacher teaching English at Angsilapittayakom School, Chonburi, a province in Thailand, and I'm so pleased to be here.
All right, thank you all the speakers that joining us today. So, all right, everyone, we've divided our talk today into 2 sections. In the first section, Kru Kai Lo are going to channel us 2 main points, right, which are beyond grammar rules, how do we teach students to be effective users of the English language? And top-down versus bottom-up, how far do we understand our learners' prior knowledge of the English language? After that, in the last section, Kru Golf and Kru Game are going to share us their viewpoints and teaching methods relating to the 2 main points in the context of Thailand. Well, and of course, everyone who's watching, we love to hear from you. Please feel free to give some comments, right? Share your ideas or leave some interesting questions in the comments. Well, so all of your comments are welcome. And now we are sharing in like professional learning community or PLC, right? All right, now Kru Kai Lo is ready for the first section. And you?
Yep, just give me a moment. Let me get the slides up for you.
Okay, well.
Right. I'm getting nervous already. Ooh.
So many people are, looking forward to this talk.
All right. Can I just check? Can you see?
Like it's a casual talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I just check? Can you see my PowerPoint slides?
Clearly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So good evening, everybody. Namaste. My name is Kai. I am a Singapore English language and literature teacher. Previously, I taught in Singapore schools for about 10 years, and my students were ages 13 to 18. Thank you to insKru for inviting me today to share my thoughts on how together as teachers, we can effectively teach our learners the English language. I am so excited to hear your views and to learn together with you. Now, the title of my sharing today is Considerations for the English Language Teacher. And considerations are like the factors, the priorities that essentially will determine how we teach our learners the language in the classroom. So based on my experiences in Singapore, I am very keen to share with you 2 key considerations I have learned in the last 10 years. So for many of us,
Okay. Before Krukai continue. Well, I would like to tell everyone of our audience, right, from homes or workplaces that you are going to get a certificate, right, by watching this live talk and joining our activity from insKru, right? So, well, during watching our talk now, you can note some ideas, and after that, you can share your ideas in the insKru websites, right? So, well, on insKru websites, you can go to worldwideweb.insKru.com, right, to share your ideas about this talk, right, based on the topic. And please tag English PLC, right? So, okay, so as you can see on the screen, so make sure, please do not put the hashtag, alright? สำหรับทุกท่านนะครับที่กำลังรับชมอยู่นะครับทาง insKru ของเราเนี่ยก็มีกิจกรรมพิเศษนะครับให้ผู้เข้าร่วมทุกท่านนะครับได้มีส่วนร่วมในการพูดคุยนะครับในวันนี้เนี่ยนะครับทุกท่านสามารถที่จะ recap ประเด็นที่สำคัญนะครับหรือว่าไอเดียที่ท่านสนใจเนี่ยไปแชร์นะครับใน www.insKru.com ได้นะครับซึ่งถ้าหากท่านนะครับได้แชร์แล้วเนี่ยนะครับรบกวนนะครับติดแท็กนะครับ English PLC นะครับโดยที่ไม่ต้องใส่แฮชแท็กนะครับท่านก็จะรับเกียรติบัตรนะครับเหมือนที่นะครับทางทีมงานเนี่ยได้โชว์อยู่ที่หน้าจอนะครับนอกจากนี้ไอเดียของท่านนะครับยังสามารถที่จะเข้าร่วมอีกกิจกรรมหนึ่งของ insKru นะครับซึ่งทาง insKru เนี่ยกำลังตามหาไอเดียนะครับจากคุณครูผู้สอนภาษาอังกฤษทั่วประเทศเลยนะครับสามารถที่จะเข้ามาแชร์ไอเดียได้นะครับในกิจกรรมที่นะครับ insKru ได้เดี๋ยวรบกวนทีมงานช่วยขึ้นแฮชแท็กนิดหนึ่งได้ไหมครับติดแฮชแท็กนี่ครับแฮชแท็กคือ English Breakfast นะครับทุกท่าน English Breakfast ซึ่งไม่ต้องใส่แฮชแท็กเช่นเดิมนะครับหรือว่าไปติ๊กตรงช่องนะครับเข้าร่วมโครงการ English Breakfast ได้เลยนะครับแล้วก็ถ้าท่านได้แชร์ไอเดียแล้วเนี่ยนะครับทางทีมงานนะครับก็จะนำไอเดียของท่านเนี่ยมานะครับตัดสินนะครับแล้วก็มาแลกเปลี่ยนเรียนรู้นะครับเพื่อที่จะมอบกิจบัตรให้ทุกท่านนะครับซึ่งทาง insKru นะครับมีรางวัลนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นโล่รางวัลหรือเกียรติบัตรสำหรับผู้ที่เป็น top 5นะครับแล้วก็ในระดับอื่นๆนะครับทางทีม insKru เนี่ยได้เตรียมไว้แม้แต่กระทั่งทุกท่านเนี่ยแชร์ไอเดียเข้ามานะครับก็จะสามารถได้รับเกียรติบัตรจาก insKru ด้วยนะครับตรงนี้ขออนุญาตอธิบายให้ทุกท่านเป็นภาษาไทยนะครับสักเล็กน้อยนะครับให้ทุกท่านได้นะครับได้เข้าร่วมกิจกรรมดีๆของ insKru นะครับ so all right okay well so now Kru Kailo is ready for continuing right the topic
sure okay so I'm really keen to see and to read what you have to say in response to my sharing today and as I was saying earlier these are important considerations essentially the factors the priorities or the principles that more or less would determine how we teach the language and what about the language we teach to our students. Now, understandably, for many of us, when it comes to teaching the English language, we cannot run away from the grammar rules. These are really important because fundamentally, like any other subject, these are the rules that will help our learners to learn the subject more easily. So rules are useful because they are meant to be easily followed by our learners. So for example, in the English language, there are basic rules such as to not end a sentence with a preposition. Therefore, we tend to say, what did you step on? And we don't say, what did you step, right? Now, think about this. Because in everyday English language use, do we always follow the rules? Are the rules always necessarily compulsory? Now, let me share another example. If you're teaching the English language, fundamentally, you will know that a basic sentence would have a subject, a verb, and an object. However, when people tend to ask you in English, what did you have for lunch? Do you always say, I had a sandwich? Or do you sometimes simply say, a sandwich? The point that I want to make is this. Rules certainly are very important, but is it always true that rules cannot be bent or even broken? And when we teach our students to just follow the rules, then fundamentally, what do they learn and what do they not get to learn? I would like to invite everybody to now consider this instead. While we teach our students the importance of grammar rules, do we take time to teach them how to bend the rules, when to bend the rules, and most importantly, why there's a need to bend the rules? Now, I'm a big believer that language is a living, breathing thing. It is prone to change and adaptation. And therefore, when we use language, we have to take in mind the different purposes, the different audiences, and the different contexts in which the language is being used. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean, yeah? So think about your basic marriage proposal. Some people will simply say, marry me. That's very straightforward, right? Just marry me. But if you want to really touch or move the person that you're proposing to, you may say something a lot more personable, a lot more, shall we say, emotive. You may say, you complete me, marry me. So the purpose now is layered with the need to factor in the audience. Now, if I may now introduce you to context, think about now this sentence. After all these years, I finally married him. Now, in this sentence alone, note the use of the ellipsis or the three dots and the emphasis on the word finally. These seem to suggest that the I in this sentence is the more powerful person in the relationship. And if this is I is a female, then this speaks to the spirit of feminism. So the point that I wish to convey to all of us today is this. The rules are very important, but they're only the beginning of the teaching of English language and the learning of the language. When we teach our students how to bend the rules, why they bend the rules, and when do they bend the rules, then they become a lot more effective as communicators. All right? So with that, let me now move on to my second consideration, and it is the importance of prior knowledge. Now, I must confess, this second consideration is of a more metacognitive nature. So let me now explain to you what I mean. When we teach a subject, for example, we teach just the subject. So for example, English language. But we don't often teach students to think about how they think about the English language. So metacognition and prior knowledge is thinking about thinking. Now, I know that this may be a little bit complex, so let me give you an example to really illustrate my point. So for many of our learners today in the classrooms, whether Singapore or Thailand, many of them are digital natives, they are active users of social media, and their brains are largely wired to respond to images and to visual stimulation. So when we often give them a word or a phrase to read, many of us as teachers think that they make meaning from what they're reading. But is this always true? So let's try an experiment, okay, all of us now online. When I say the word apple, and this has been on your screen for a while now, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it a red colored apple for brown
Snow White.
and green leaf? You think of Snow White? Excellent. So that's important, right? Because this
the first thing I think of was Snow White eating an apple.
And Snow White's apple is red, right? So to me, as an English language teacher, this tells me something about my students' prior knowledge. And you know what, everybody? I want to challenge you. If you go to Google Images and you Google search apple for Google Images, 9 out of 10 are red color apples. Is this the reality though? Is there only one type of apple? What if a student in your class has seen a different kind of apple or doesn't even know that it's only just that color apple? Then are you going to factor in the need for them now to adjust?
And if you go to Google,
knowledge?
You may see a more powerful one called Apple.
I see a lot of iPhone, iPad on Google.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. So the word apple itself now has different meanings as well. Thank you for raising that. That's so relevant, you know. So you see, if we don't activate prior knowledge when we're teaching English, then certain things actually may happen. And I want to share with you what happened in my own classroom about 5 years ago. So I was teaching some students who were about 16 years old, and they were doing a reading exercise. And the comprehension passage, the reading passage, was about the formation of iron, the smelting of iron, I-R-O-N, the metal, yeah? And in that passage, there was the phrase pig iron. So one of the things that, so one of the things that I do as a teacher, I get students to draw what they're reading. So when they're drawing, because they're visual learners, I get to see what comes to their heads.
Yeah.
So would you believe me if I tell you this? In my class of 40 students, almost every one of them, when it came to this phrase pig iron, almost all of them drew
a
pig. They drew a pig and they drew an iron. They drew a pig and they drew an iron. They had no idea that in the context of the passage, which is the smelting of iron, pig iron as a phrase refers to inferior iron, low-grade iron. And I really wanted to share this example with you because whatever we're teaching, whether it's English or other subjects, and whatever level that we're teaching, whether primary school or high school, the point is this, right? When we activate prior knowledge, it gives us that important opportunity to recognize what are some inaccurate or wrong meaning that the students have, and we can help them to unlearn and correct that meaning. Now, in terms of English language teaching and learning, this really comes into play when we're teaching reading skills. And I want to share with you now some strategies that you might already know, and I want to just share with you now how they can be maybe done in a more broader or more creative way. So for many of us, when we teach reading, we tend to give our students something to read. So imagine you're now giving them a passage about maybe my country, Singapore. Now, do you tend to teach your students reading in the following way? You get them to read, maybe they stand up in the classroom, they read out loud, maybe they take a pencil, a pen, or a highlighter, and they underline words, and they basically practice the pronunciation of words. And maybe they practice the grammar skills, the grammar rules, or even vocabulary.
Like
this is what we call bottom up. So whatever you're reading, the meaning comes up this way. And therefore, meaning is based largely on the text that you have chosen. So if your students, for example, read this sentence, Singapore is a green city, do they understand what green city means? Do they think that it is just a city where all the buildings are green in color? Or do they understand that green city means a garden city where there are many flora, many trees, many plants around? So when the learning is text dependent, there could be a need for us, therefore, to complement, to marry this with what is called a top-down approach. So when we give students something to read, we cannot ignore that it is not just this way, it is this way as well. So meaning is derived from their prior knowledge, their culture, and their language ability. And my friends in Thailand, this is the wonderful opportunity that you can use to teach your students to unlearn certain inaccurate meaning, but also to teach them thinking skills. And fundamentally for reading and for teaching and learning of the English language, we want to focus on learning beyond the text. So critically, as readers of a language, they need to learn how to predict, how to confirm, how to pick up contextual clues, how to infer certain conclusions or ideas. And one of the examples that you can use, one of the strategies you may use rather, is what is called KWL. So for example, if you give them a passage about Singapore to read, before they read the passage, ask them to first put down on paper, what do you already know about Singapore? Then get them to read it and then look out for the things that they
try
know.
to you try to elicit their prior knowledge right before reading.
Absolutely. And when they look for those contextual clues, something is happening up here in the brain. They're making the connections between what is here and what is here. And importantly, if what they think is not what is here on paper, that is where they get to correct the misunderstanding. So after you have done this, you can get them to then illustrate. Now, having read this, what do you want to learn about Singapore and what did you learn about Singapore since reading the passage? Okay, so this is really my second consideration, that language learning is not just about the learning of the rules, it's also about understanding prior knowledge and unlearning prior knowledge that is not quite accurate. So I've come to the end of my sharing, and I want to just share with you this quotation, right? The English language is so elastic, right? So it is so dynamic, it is so lively that you can find another word to say the same thing. And this is really the foundation of how I built my presentation to share with you today. I really believe that the language that we are teaching is a changeable thing. It is prone to adaptation, and it is largely dependent on the person who says the language and the person who receives the message. And importantly, therefore, in order for our students to be effective users of the English language, they cannot simply stick to rules or to learn bottom up. They need to learn strategies to manage this elasticity of the English language. All right. Thank you for your attention. I have finished my sharing for today. Over to you, Tony.
All right. Well, those,
very
those
interesting.
So interesting. Yeah, I agree. Well, and well, can you go back to the slide about you teach your students about reading skills? So please, I believe that we can also apply these to other, activities, like maybe for like listening skills, right? So they can like, you can elicit the knowledge before they listen, right? Let them imagine what's the audio would be, or the speaker would talk about the topic, right? Yeah. So, well,
You
this
mean
one
the KWL technique? Well, you know what? The KWL technique is actually very popular in Thailand, and we're quite good with this concept a lot. Well, actually, there are various versions of KWL techniques. There could be like KWL plus, KWHL, and things like that. We actually tend to be for reading practice, but it's actually applicable for any things really at this point. But yeah, I really enjoy your presentation, Kai. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, happy to be able to share.
Let me just say that I really want to go back to Singapore. Yeah, how's Singapore?
Singapore is all right for now. I mean, we are having a new surge due to the Omicron virus variant, but other than that, we are more or less back to life as normal. Yeah.
Right. I was actually in Singapore twice. The first time I was traveling, and the second time I was studying. I actually got scholarship from the Ministry of Education of Thailand and to study in Singapore. And I got a chance to meet these amazing teachers from the Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Yeah, it was one of the most memorable moments in my professional life. Okay.
Excellent. Good to hear that. Yeah.
All right.
Over
so
to
thank
you,
you, Kukai. Okay, thank you, Kuko. And well, got to say honestly, we really enjoyed the presentation, and we hope that would be very helpful for Thai teachers who are teaching students English, right? And well, that's all about our first section, and let's move on to our next section. Well, and we're going to discuss a bit about the two main points, right, based on the context of Thailand. Well, and in this section, I would like Kru Gof and Kru Game would share your teaching methods, or like maybe even about your viewpoints about the two main points that Kru Kai just presented us. Well, okay, let's start by the first question. Let me ask Kru Gof first. Well, in your opinion, right, teaching Thai students, is this important, right? Like, is grammar important for students, for Thai students to learn English? Well, in your opinion, so.
Is grammar important? This one is a bit tricky. Okay, let me just say that if we talk about grammar, the word grammar, it could mean different things to different people. For normal people out there, it could mean correctness, incorrectness, like this one is correct, this one is not so correct. Yeah, and things like that. But for us teachers, for educators, and for students, grammar could mean the analysis, the study of words, sentences, structures, patterns, and things like that. Well, I'm sure that you guys might have heard people have been saying that, grammar is not important, grammar is silly, grammar is boring, just ignore it, right? As long as you can speak, as long as you can produce a language, that is okay. Well, that is true. But because I'm a teacher, I cannot say grammar is not important because it is, right? Okay. You can say that we can actually acquire or we can actually pick up the language naturally. Things like idioms, slangs, vocabulary. But when it comes to putting the language together, you see what I mean? When we put the language together and we try to make coherent sentences, that's when we need grammar, and that's when grammar is important. So I would say grammar is still important. We cannot escape from that. Yeah, that would be for me.
All right.
What
Thank
do
you,
you guys think?
Well, okay, let's move on to group game. For the same question, is grammar important for students? And coming up to the second question, right? You can answer, the both two questions, right, at the same time. And how can a teacher teach grammar in a lively way? So,
okay, but yes, but for me, if you ask is grammar important to students, I would say is important, but it's not the most important. You understand what I mean? It's important, but it's not everything. Learning English, learning languages, right?
Okay.
So if I can compare the grammar, I would say when you want to play the game, when you want to play a sport, right? Before you can play, you have to know the rules, right? How to play it, right? It is the same thing that if you want to speak English, if you want to use language, before you can use it, you need to know the rules, right? How can we use it effectively? How can we use it correctly? So that's why I say that it's important to know, because it is the rules. Like we are playing game, we need to know the rule as well. Actually, I would say grammar is a foundation. It's one of the foundation of languages, right? It is the rules. If we don't know it, we can't use it. Exactly, right? So if you search a definition or the meaning of grammar on any dictionary, you will see the same thing, that grammar is the way that we order the words, right? How can we order the words in the sentences? So imagine if we have a sentence like, I do love cats. I do love cats, right? It's just a statement to tell that, I am a cat lover, right? But if you order these words in a different way, like, do I love cat? It's different, right? Different position is different meaning. So that's why we need to know the rules of language, which we call grammar. So we know it to use language correctly. So I would say grammar is important. Grammar is important, but it's not everything.
Yeah. And Group Game, how about teaching grammar in a lively way for your students? So,
from me, learning and teaching grammar has to be fun. It is the key factor that I believe all the time. It has to be fun. Imagine I would like all audience that they are watching us right now. Close your eye. Close your eye. Okay, close your eye. And
I tried it also.
Yes. If we talk about a grammar classroom, a grammar lesson, what kind of picture that pop up into your mind? Grammar classroom. A quiet one, right? A serious one, right?
And the
boring one. Yes, right? This is a classic. All right, you can open your eyes now, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
This is the classic classroom of grammar, right? It's so boring. So that's why I say that grammar lesson has to be fun. And how? I have tried many things, many ways to make my classroom fun. The first thing, we need to adjust our level of difficulty of grammar. It depends on, prior knowledge of student, right? The level of student, we have to adjust the difficulty. And the next one, we have to break a lesson. Okay, some of grammar rules that are, that are complex. we cannot end it in a 15 minutes. In Thailand, we have 15 minutes per class, right? So we cannot end it in a one classroom.
Really?
But we can, we can break it, right? We can break into another class, and we can give a lot of time to practice. Let them practice. Don't just lecturing, writing something, listen and writing. Let them practice. Role playing, many things that I employ in the classroom. And the first one, the most important thing, use a real, real material. Like we are going to teach some grammar rules. Use the real material from the news, from the, from the song, things like that. Something that interests students will grab their attention and can make it fun. That I would say grammar class has to be fun for me.
Wow, that's cool. And so, how about teacher Go? Like teaching grammar in a lively way, please. And after this, I would like the two teachers would share their teaching methods, and I would like Kru Kai would share your opinion about the teaching ways of the two teachers in the context of Singapore also. All right, that you would use the techniques that the two teachers share with your students in Singapore and all. So, okay. So back to Kru Go. How about teaching grammar in a lively way? And could you please show us, like, beyond grammar rules, right? How do you teach students to be effective users of the English language? So,
before I proceed to that, I'm reading comments and people say that
oh,
yeah,
very tasty gestures. Yeah.
Okay, so cook off. There's a cook off FC.
Guys, evening everybody who's watching. So
and a lot of FCs of crew game also.
Sure. How do I teach grammar in a fun and a lively way? Well, I just want to say that convincing or trying to get students to actually enjoy grammar sometimes feels like trying to get a cat to actually enjoy a bath or being water, right? You see what I mean? Right. But I think the key to making them to actually enjoy grammar is their attitudes. So I have been saying this a lot. If you take a look back at my previous video I posted on my YouTube channel, I would say things like attitude is important, because when I ask myself, how do I get to this point? The point where I actually enjoy grammar, the point where I actually somehow master the language. And the answer is the attitude. So when you are positive, when you feel positive, and when you have a positive attitude towards the language, you want to do that thing. You want to do anything. You want to practice the language willingly. So I think the key to making students like the language or grammar is to get them to like the language first, because I'm teaching primary kids, younger kids. If I push them too hard, if I force them too much, if I, be a crazy teacher, they would just, and no to English or whatsoever. And it's a part of my job as a teacher to make sure that they have positive attitudes towards the language, so that the secondary teachers will be okay later, when they go to secondary schools. Yep. That would be my perspective as a teacher.
Well, and there's a question, so can any one of you would please answer. So there's a question from Kun Tiwat, right? How can we make a balance between the correctness of using grammar and the confidence of using English in a normal context?
Correct. Okay. Kun Atiwat, you are talking about the fluency and the accuracy, and these are a total different concept. So if we focus on accuracy, we focus on grammar stuff. But when we tend to focus on fluency, when we actually use the language, when we speak or when we write, we don't tend to to focus much on the correctness or incorrectness. So as a good teacher, you need to find the balance between that concept. So if your class is a community class, you need to come up with approaches that focus on fluency. And when they make mistakes, do not correct the mistake right away, and that would kind of like motivate them. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So and Kru Kai, how about the context in Singapore? So to balance the correctness and the confidence of the students using English. So.
Yeah, so I'm learning so much from Kru Golf and Kru Game, and I want to just say that there's so much that I really identify with, particularly the need for lessons to always be fun and engaging, and the need for us to make sure that the learning points are digestible, and whether we're teaching primary or high school students, the learning points must essentially be learned by the students, right? And I think also more importantly, in response to this question about the correctness of grammar and the confidence of using the English language, balance is always good in life. I mean, I do yoga, I believe in balance, namaste. But I will also say you may have to think very carefully as a teacher, what would work best for your students. Now, I used to teach in a school and I was given a class of the poorest students, meaning they performed the worst in a national examination. And would you believe me if I tell you this? They did not dare speak. They did not dare write for fear of making a mistake. And that is where actually as a teacher now, we have to now calibrate our thinking. Is the correctness more important than the confidence, the ease of just simply using a language? Yeah. So if your students are those who are not confident, then you may want to create that space for them to do things like role play, as shared earlier by Kru Golf and Kru Game, get them to share ideas and don't correct them. Let them speak freely. And then when the confidence comes in, the grammar rules will come in with time. I want to also respond earlier to, I think, the sharing by Kru Game and
Well,
Kru
that's
Golf.
cool. This means judging. So it's better. It's better to motivate them to speak freely, right? Instead of judging them when speaking English. So, okay, that's so cool. Thank you for sharing this.
Yes.
And well, now I would like Kru Golf and Kru Game please share the different contexts of teaching students to be effective users of English, right? Beyond the grammar rules. Could you please show us some of your teaching methods, so and in different levels or of students or different contexts that I know that Kru Golf have taught many levels of students, like even like in the countryside or an urban city, and even Kru Game teaching both junior high school students and senior high school students also. So could you please share this to us, and after that, Kru Kai, please share your opinions about the teaching styles in the context of Singapore.
Okay, sure.
So I would go first. Can you bring up my slides, please? Slides, please. So okay, I'm gonna talk about how we can actually. Okay, this is like one of the many activities that we can actually engage students to actually enjoy grammar. So this is actually my classroom. It's a bit all over the place. So next, please.
Really neat.
So as you can see at the back of my classroom, there's a board. There's a bulletin board. So I create a bulletin board, which is called Why Grammar Matters. And each week I would ask students to notice funny, surprising grammatical errors they see in their real life situation, environment, community. Whether if they notice anything not so correct on size, boards, or products, they would take a picture and send that to me, and I will put this on the board. So it's kind of like teaching students to observe, to notice the language.
It's like a lively board. A lively board.
It's really
fun activities with the board. That's cool.
Guys have been like sending me pictures like ระวังเสา beware Saturday. It's a bit more. It's like mango finish.
Okay,
that's cute.
There's a joke. There's a joke in Thai language, Kru Kai.
It's a joke, guys.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every 2 weeks, if I'm not too lazy, I would change the pictures, and kids will be like, oh, what would be put up on the board, things like that. So watch history. It's different. So this way, students can actually enjoy more. See what I mean? So I'm gonna move on to next slide. So I have taught in 3 different schools in 3 different
beautiful
contexts.
nature. So is this your school, Kukov?
So this one is actually in the middle of nowhere on the mountain. We have no internet.
Wow.
We have no electricity, and
Okay.
it was like 8 years ago. So at this school, so we don't have much of the technology
So
or
kids.
digital tools. So I actually got my students to learn the words outside. So to actually like learn in a real life situation. There's a tree, there's a flower, there's a rock, there's grass, and things like that. Yeah. คิดถึง And then this is my second school, and it's in the countryside, but there is no internet connection. So I created the reading corner in the back of my class, and then I make this board. Upcoming birthday, and I will ask my
It
students
looks so attractive. Yeah.
Yes,
to write.
I think
If
so.
I were your students, I would go to.
I want to sit
read
here
the
all
book
day.
every day.
Yeah, I created
So
all
do
by
I.
myself and my money
Really?
alone.
Oh my god. Okay.
And I asked
So-
them to write,
Wow.
them to write their birthday, and this way they could actually practice spelling and writing, and I put their birthday on the board as well. And since they don't have phones, they don't have iPad or whatsoever, because they're Hill tribe children, so I use sticker, and this was like 6 years ago. And I also created this สมุดดาวสมุดสะสมแต้ม it's called token book, just to positive reinforcement to encourage students. Okay,
For like
every time-
elementary students, right?
Yeah.
So what grade do you
Every
use
time
with them? What grade of
homework,
students?
every
Kukov?
time you do good things, I'll give you stars, and by the end of each semester they can actually turn the stars into rewards and prize, just like 7-Eleven สะสมสแตมป์
Wow. Like lunch with Krugov, maybe. That's one of the prizes.
Yeah, they can, but lights, that's and
Okay.
moving on to, so this is my school at the moment. So as you can see, I've got equipments, I've got TVs, I've got Wi-Fi, I've got connection. So if you look at the TV, there's a call cartoon Mickey Mouse. So before I begin my class, I would let them watch Mickey Mouse, and it's kind of like my signature, because my students really enjoy watching Mickey Mouse, and it's fun, it's in English, and it's not too long. It's just like 2 or 3 minutes long, and in each episode I would ask them things like, I would have the guiding questions, things like, okay, what animals can you spot in the episode, or what could you have done if you were Mickey Mouse, and things like that, just to get them to think about the situations and to practice the language indirectly. And see, when the students have like phones and things, I would have like Mentimeter, Kahoot, Padlet, class dojos, and to get the class more active and interactive. And I also asked them to recycle the vocabulary that I taught them and make and create art, so they paint
Like
the shirts.
Integrated learning.
Yes. Things like, I am clever, I am cute, I am beautiful, I am confident. Yeah, I really miss these guys. And so after they finish painting the t-shirts, and they need to iron, but I was afraid that it would cause accident, so I just, okay, I'll do it myself. Okay, so I iron like hundreds
You did it
of
for them?
all by
Really?
myself, and really
What a
because if I let them do that, I was afraid that they would burn themselves. and parents would just complain, you let my child get hurt.
All right.
See, and just like I think 3 or 4 years ago, Thai people were aware of the problems with the plastic bag usage and like supermarkets stopped giving plastic bags, and then the cloth bag became popular. So I just like it was a trend back then. So I asked them to create an art on the cloth bag, just like what is show you guys on the picture, things like that, using the words that I taught them, and they will write the words that reflects them. Okay, I'm clever, I am calm, I am energetic, and things like that. Yeah, so that would be all from me. Yeah, so this is this is partially of what I've been doing as a teacher. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Kukov. Well, yeah, what I learned from Kukov is a duty of a teacher who has to like try to apply what he or she has, right? Even teaching in a poor school in the countryside or in the like urban city, we got to apply what we have. So even we have no internet, right? We have to apply some real material for them, or let students like go to study outside classrooms, well, to see nature and beautiful environment. So that is interesting. So, okay, could we go to Kugem to change your teaching methods for your junior and senior high school students, please? And after that, Kukai, please recap the ideas of both of the two teachers. Thank you.
Okay, so before I mention or talk about what I have done for my students, I would like to back to the last question, that beyond the grammar rules, right? How can we teach students to be effective in English? I have seen in a comment that it fits from me, that I agree with her. She said that confidence is the key success for language learner. I agree with her, because if imagine if student knows a lot of vocabulary, they have a lot of vocabulary in their mind, but they don't have confidence, they can't speak, right? I agree with that. So what I have done for my student is to raise their confidence as well as raise their motivation in learning and in using English. So that is my presentation. Waiting for a slide at the moment. So I bring a gamification concept. I don't know whether you have heard about it or not. A gamification concept. I have brought it into my classroom for senior, for junior high school. I use this one for both of them. A gamification concept is the way that we bring some game elements into the classroom. Imagine game element, for example, collecting points, right? Receiving awards, having different levels. Like it's like we are playing the game. Imagine, I don't know. Can I mention? Do you have a Shopee application in your mobile phone? Shopee application. It's an application to shop something, right?
Okay.
If you think about it.
Orange one. All right,
yeah.
I've got one.
If you think about it carefully, you will see that the main purpose of the application is to shop, is to buy and sell something, right? But if you think more carefully, you will see that we can play some game on it. We can collect points. We can receiving awards, right? This is the way it is the gamification concept. So collecting points, having awards, having different levels is gamification. So I bring into my classroom. This is the website that I created, and let students, register yourself themselves to the website. Each of my students will have their own account. They are free to selecting their own profile picture, their own name, right? On this website. Yes, their avatar as well on this website. And during the semester, during the lesson, they will collect the score continuously, and the score will affect their levels. The level will have different level as shown on screen. Each student from silver one to the highest, the grandmaster one, according to the score that they receive in the classroom. So this is the way that I, encourage students, motivate students to practice more, more language in the classroom, right? If they have more score, they have a higher level. So it is fun for them because the student are student, right? Students love playing games.
They like games.
So
Sure.
Yes. So bring the game into the classroom so that they love it. Another thing is badges. So I separate into 3 aspects like knowledge, practice, attitude. These badges will award to students when they act out, when they perform something that is related to my target. Like for example, if they speak English in the classroom, 100% speaking English in the classroom, they will be awarded a badges. The middle one, the purple in the middle one. Yes. And if they talk to teacher in English outside the classroom for 3 times a day, they will receive another badges. And these badges will appear on their profile in the website as well. So they can capture the picture, they can share it on their own, Facebook account, their own Instagram. That's fun. And this one make other students that, that they don't study with me, want to study with me because they want levels, they want a badges as well. So this is the one that I bring into my classroom to make students, motivated in learning and using language in the classroom. That's fun. And I encourage all audience as a teacher to employ it in your classroom as well.
ครูเกม
So,
I just have one question
Yes.
for you.
That's
So
someone said.
everything cannot always be perfect. There must be good
Yeah.
sides and a bad side. So using your games, do you have ever encountered any problems?
I have a lot of problem using it. Like this is the game, right?
Alright,
So
alright.
there is a high competition in the classroom.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Every student want to be a winner.
Yeah.
So I would say their empathy will be decreased
Empathy.
by this one. So we need to balance it. So I try to fix it. I try to improve it. But overall, it's good. It's
Good
good.
game. One of our audience just said, "Wow, I love those badges."
Yeah. So yeah, I would say I encourage all of you to try this.
Kru Bayan got a question for you. Like students really love games. I couldn't agree more. However, how do you make sure that they fully grasp the lesson?
Full request. Actually, it's not the way that we play the game in the classroom, right? It's just some elements. We teach and we learn normally. But we put a special game element into the classroom. So I think, according to my past experiences, we can cover.
It's like an additional material, right? So to help to let students
to motivate students
in the lesson. Cool.
It's not the way that we play the game in the class, but every time they sit in the class, they have their own score, they have their own account, they have their own badges on the website.
It's like the way to motivate students to learn and be happy in learning. So that's awesome.
Yes. And that's helped a lot.
From my perspective, from my past experience, since I taught in rural areas, so this will be problems for teachers and students who don't have an access to this kind of devices, right? Which I agree. Right. You need to be quite ready, with all the devices, connections, and everything. But that is a good thing. Who doesn't like games?
Let's try one.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Kru Game, for sharing the fun game. Well, and now, Kru Kai, could you please share your ideas about the ideas from the 2 teachers, right? Arranging the classroom to be fun, right, and let students learn outside classroom sometimes. Creating some corners, like some lively corners for them to learn or to read English, and to use gamification in the classroom? How do they work in Singapore?
So I want to just start by saying that learning from Kru Game and Kru Golf, there are a few important principles that will work in any classroom, whether in Singapore or Thailand. And the first principle is that of extrinsic motivation, the reward incentive, right? So in Kru Games, sharing earlier, the badges that the students are winning, that badge of honor, knowing that they are number one in rank, that will motivate your students to maybe do their best for the activity, and hopefully the learning would come naturally. I think in Kru Golf's classroom, because they are younger students, I recall you saying that they are primary school students. What I found most insightful, what I found most inspiring was that the extrinsic motivation was very much tied up with self-identity. So I am calm, I am strong, I am beautiful. You're giving students very important descriptors to hold on to so that they know who they are as people.
Exactly.
And that is so important. That is so important.
That was my purpose.
Absolutely. And I think maybe one area that I want to encourage everybody, whether in a primary school or a high school, at some point, the extrinsic motivation, the rewards, the badges, the gifts, the tokens, the stars, all of that has to slowly come to an end. And the students have to be driven intrinsically, because ultimately there will be a day when they will leave our classrooms and there will no longer be a teacher there to motivate them with the games, the badges, the prizes. They need to find that ability to drive themselves, to motivate themselves, to want to learn and to unlearn. So really want to encourage everybody to find that balance and to also time your strategies when your students are more or less shall we say, prepared, and you know that they can drive themselves now intrinsically, then find a way to maybe remove those extrinsic rewards very gradually. The other suggestion that I want to make is this. I understand entirely why these strategies work and why they are very useful. And one thing that I really enjoy listening to Kru Golf and Kru Game is the application of language to everyday life. So for example, designing those cloth bags, putting there, for example, the descriptors of your name, and of course, gaming, right? Using the gaming language. You may want to consider now including or adding in different uses of the English language in different areas of work. So for example, a tour guide, or maybe a shopkeeper or hotelier or a businessman. So your role play now could take very specific context. And what you then do is you get them to learn the vocabulary specific to that context. Let me explain what I mean. So everybody plays sports to some degree, right? So you can say that I won the game, or in football, you can say I scored the winning goal, or in basketball, you can say I slam dunk the final ball. My point is this: when you give students that specific scenario to work with, they learn the grammar, they learn the vocabulary, and most importantly, they see the value of the language in a practical way. Yeah. I want to go back to grammar rules. Is that okay, Kru Tony? I think it's really important. I think all of us here today recognize the importance of grammar rules, and even though in my sharing earlier, I talked about the need to bend the rules or even break the rules, make no mistake, I recognize and respect the need for rules as well. But I want to just maybe now share a perspective with everybody, The English language can be taught using grammar rules. And if you think about now the student's perspective, so our students come to us for English language. They also go, for example, for science classes, for mathematics classes. Now, in the math class, rules are unbreakable. 1 + 1 equals 2. Unbreakable rule. In the science classroom, if you do a litmus test, acid, it will turn pink. It is unbreakable rule. The challenge with English is that rules are oftentimes bendable. So I want to just suggest that when you teach students grammar, just be very aware of how the students are receiving rules as a concept. And the second thing is this, there are many famous English writers, English native speakers, famous, poets, playwrights, novelists. They break the grammar rules all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
You may
Exactly.
want to use those samples as authentic resources to show your students how these rules are actually sometimes bendable in different contexts, and look at these famous writers, how they bend the rules to great effect. Because ultimately, learning a language is about, yes, the rules, the vocabulary, but it's also about effective communication. So how do we teach them to find a way to communicate effectively? I want to share with you a good example from my experience, right? So when I was a very young teacher,
Okay.
My head of department said to me, Kai, we must teach them grammar. You need to go in there and teach them grammar and make sure they know grammar. And there'll be a grammar test. All right. So you go in there, you give them all the practice papers, you teach them all the fun things, but the students will ask you, hang on a minute here. In the English language, one dog, many dogs, one cat, many cats. Why is it one goose, but not many gooses, many geese? Right? And there is no answer for that. There is no answer for that.
Always
just
blended. Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to recognize that to the learners who are not so maybe confident or not so, shall we say, skillful with the language, many of the rules don't make sense. So how do we help them to recognize that actually it is okay that they don't make sense? It is important for you to recognize that they don't make sense. And then how do we incorporate this in our teaching of the language to make it more dynamic? Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah.
Kai, let me just ask Kai.
Yeah.
English the first or second language?
In Singapore for myself?
Yeah.
It's my first language.
Yeah.
It's my first language.
Thailand, English is not taught as the second language, but in fact it's taught as foreign language. So given our circumstances, given all the difficulties that most of the Thai teachers are facing, it's really challenging and sometimes difficult. Like for me, when I was teaching kids in the New Tribe villages, actually English is actually their third language. Thai is their second. So you can imagine how hard it must be for me to actually trying to get them engaged in the classroom, in the activities and, various skills practice and things like that. But as a teacher, I'm going to do my best. And thanks for your advice on extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Yeah.
Not advice, just sharing and learning from each other.
Yeah. I'm aware of the concept, but I almost forgot about intrinsic one.
But Kru Golf, I want to also say to you that very sincerely, both you and Kru Game, right? Whatever you're doing is really incredible work. It is incredible work, and ultimately, in your context, teaching students, for example, in the villages where English language is not even the second, it's a foreign language or a third language, I can imagine they'll come to you and they'll say to you, I don't understand this thing. Why must I learn it? Why is it important to learn this language that we don't even use? I used to run a department. I was a department head for the English language and literature department in the school, high school. And in Singapore, yes, English is a first language for many of our students, but there are students who do not speak English as a first language. I will share with you, as a head of department, it is my duty to ensure that the students pass the national examinations. It was very difficult one day when a student came to me and he said to me, teacher, my family doesn't speak English. I only learn English in schools. I don't see myself using English outside of school. Can you explain to me the value of learning this language? It was a real struggle for me because for me as the head of department, it's not just about passing examinations, right? So there must be something about language learning, the learning of a language as a concept, as a living, breathing thing that is useful for all students. In the same vein, I think when it comes to language learning, we have to accept that everybody has their own thinking about the language. So for example, some people feel that, in Singapore, for instance, right, there are some English teachers. So let me just share with you, formally in my department, there are some English teachers who are very traditional grammarians. All right. So when we do, for example, very traditional grammarian. So we were doing, for example, standardization as a level of teachers. So you mark a level together, you set the standard to say which is an A, which is a B, which is a C. So there were some very traditional grammarians, and it's not about whether they were senior or junior or young or old teachers. It's just the thinking about the language. English is about received pronunciation, Queen's English. It has to be British spelling, proper English. Then you have teach. Exactly, right? Water, not water, right?
Hello, mate.
And you have teachers like me, not grammarians, right? I'm not a grammarian. I believe in teaching the dynamic nature of language. So let me share with you what happened at this particular meeting of teachers. One of my students in the essay wrote that, so it was describing a character in the story, and the student wrote the character turned as green as kangkong. Now, kangkong in Singapore, the kangkong in Singapore is a Singapore name for a kind of vegetable.
Okay.
And the vegetable is green in color. So the grammarian teacher circled the error and said the student needs to fail because this is not a proper English expression. It should be turned as green as grass. All right. So I asked the question, is the vegetable not green in color? Did the student not spell the Singaporean name correctly? Why is it wrong? And there was a huge debate amongst the teachers. Some felt that it was improper to use Singaporean English in an essay. Some felt that, but it's okay, we're Singaporean, what's the big deal? Now, I'm sharing this with you because we're all part of Southeast Asia, and whether we're learning English in Singapore and Thailand, we're going to take English and make it our own language, right? We will introduce elements of Thai and Singapore English into English itself. So as teachers, how do we recognize that this is perfectly normal, absolutely natural? How do we use it to teach our students a love for the language, to recognize that language actually can be used in a fun and lively and authentic way? And it need not just be English the way the British use or the American use.
Yes.
Right.
It should be okay.
Wow.
It should be okay. Like we have a English. Thailand, English. It should be okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, everyone that joined your opinions and share your teaching methods that meet our first viewpoint, right? And next point, well, before we're going to move to the next point, let me just remind our audience that we have activities, right, from insKru นะครับทุกท่านนะฮะที่กำลังชม insKru อยู่ตอนนี้นะครับก็เป็นไงกันบ้างครับบรรยากาศของการนะฮะใช้ภาษาอังกฤษในการสื่อสารนะครับในวงคุยนี้นะครับก็เป็น PLC นะครับแลกเปลี่ยนกันนะครับในเชิงเรื่องของวัฒนธรรมในการสอนนะครับ context ในสิงคโปร์นะครับแล้วก็ในประเทศไทยของเรานะครับตอนนี้นะครับก็นะครับอยากจะประชาสัมพันธ์นะครับทุกท่านที่กำลังรับชมนะครับในประเด็นแรกที่เราพูดคุยกันนะครับก็คือการที่เราจะสอนนักเรียนนะครับให้เป็น effective users นะครับใช้ภาษาอังกฤษได้อย่างมีประสิทธิผลเนี่ยเราจะทำยังไงนะครับ beyond grammar rules นะครับถ้าหากว่าเราไม่ได้แบบไปเคร่งครัดหรือว่าจะต้องแบบ grammar perfect 100% นะครับถ้าคุณครูมีไอเดียที่จะแชร์นะครับสามารถไปเขียนไอเดียที่www.insKru.com ได้นะครับซึ่งท่านจะได้รับ certificate นะครับน่ารักจาก insKru นะครับในฐานะที่ท่านเป็น participant นะครับของวง PLC นี้นะครับนอกจากนี้นะครับหากท่านได้แชร์ไอเดียเนี่ยอย่าลืมติดแท็กนะครับแท็ก English PLC นะครับใน www.insKru.com ด้วยนะครับซึ่งทีมงานของเราเนี่ยได้แปะลิงก์ไว้ให้ทุกท่านแล้วนะครับอีก กรณีหนึ่งครับทุกท่านเหมือนยิงปืนนัดเดียวได้นก2ตัวเลยครับก็คือหากทุกท่านแชร์นะครับอย่าลืมติดแท็กอีกแท็กหนึ่งนะครับก็คือ English Breakfast นะครับทีมงานช่วยขึ้นแฮชแท็กให้คุณครูนิดหนึ่งนะครับหรือว่าคุณครูไปพบเจอไอเดียที่น่าสนใจนะครับก็สามารถมาแชร์ได้เลยนะครับเพื่อที่จะรุ่นของรางวัลนะครับแล้วก็ทางinsKruเนี่ยนะครับมีเกียรติบัตรแล้วก็โล่รางวัลให้กับผู้เข้าร่วมนะครับก็เหมือนยิงปืนนัดเดียวได้นก2ตัวเลยวันนี้แล้วก็สามารถแชร์ทั้งภาษาอังกฤษและภาษาไทยได้เลยนะครับคุณครูแล้วก็ในระหว่างที่เราพูดคุยกันนะครับคุณครูสามารถพิมพ์คอมเมนต์หรือคำถามเป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้ well so comments and questions in Thai are also welcome in this talk right so feel free to use Thai if you are comfortable or you would like to try to use grammar in a lively way right no worries about grammar so we can bend the grammar rules right so no worries about mistakes well we don't judge you but we are motivating you to use English effectively
as well as we understand each other
of course so okay so well everybody would we move on to the next topic and I'm going to ask Kru Game and Kru Golf would share your opinion about the prior knowledge of students so well the first question is it important to understand students' prior knowledge why or why not or have you ever faced or experienced difficulty in teaching students with different levels of prior knowledge so could you please share this so Kru Game could you please start
yes
and okay
all right so when we talk about student prior knowledge I think that it's very important for us as a teacher as an educator right because if we know a student prior knowledge we can use it to prepare to plan our teaching right to fulfill our student so recently I have read some piece of research paper I like the word I like they say that prior knowledge of student directly impacts their language learning I agree with this because when it comes to learning is about making connection to learn the connection between prior knowledge in the part with the new knowledge that they are going to learn so learning is the process that we connect these things together right so
and could I interrupt so well knowing and activating the prior knowledge of the student is one of the indicators of Thai teachers now right in PA right นะทุกท่านนะครับ PA นะฮะการที่ activate ก็คือการที่เราเนี่ยสามารถเชื่อมโยงความรู้เดิมนะครับของนักเรียนสู่บทเรียนได้เนี่ยนะครับเป็น1ตัวชี้วัดเลยนะครับใน8ตัวชี้วัดของคลิปการสอน PAนะครับ so Kru Kai PA is like the performance agreements of Thai teachers who would like to improve themselves right they need to write PA and they need to record a video if they want to go in a higher level so and connecting the prior knowledge of the students to this lesson is one of the indicators that the teachers got to do in the classroom so so please continue share your ideas so Kru Game thank you
so imagine we are a teacher right and every year every semester student come to us they don't come with a blank brain right they come with their own knowledge they come with their own experiences right different student different perspective different background different prior knowledge so it would be better if we let them learn something by connecting to what they have learned it would be easier it's easier than learning something new from zero right it's easier than that so it would be better for teacher to try to connect their student prior knowledge to the new one it would be better to make them understand easier and faster and what I do. Oh no, not what I do. Another question: have I experienced the difficulty in teaching right with different students' prior knowledge? Yes, I have, and I think all of audience as a teacher have faced this kind of situation as well. You know, how can I deal with it? In every semester, in every year, the first day, the first week of each semester, I will, use a placement test, or we call it pre-test to my students to assess their prior knowledge. And after that, I will arrange, I will provide them optional, enrichment class outside the classroom as well, and they are free to participating in my enrichment, optional enrichment. And what about in class? In each classroom, I will try to spend first 5 minutes to 10 minutes to allow them to activate their prior knowledge as well as build their background knowledge by showing them the topic that I'm going to teach, and let the student who have a lot of prior knowledge about it to share it. All right. And for those who don't know anything or don't have any idea about it, they can listen to their friend and learn something new. And at the same time, they can build their background knowledge from their friends who have more prior knowledge as well. So this is the way that I deal with the different level of prior knowledge of students. The student who have a lot of prior knowledge, you share it to your friends. Those who don't know anything, listen and learn from them in the class.
That's great.
Yes, and this is the way that I deal with it, and it's worked.
It's kind of friendly atmosphere in the classroom, so that a teacher, motivates students to be happy, even they don't know. Oh yeah, okay, that's very great.
Yeah, they can share with each other. So what about you, Krugov?
I think you just said it all.
Okay, and then okay, and
well,
would you please share your techniques and teaching methods that you use to activate your students' prior knowledge? So in the context of your teaching.
Techniques and ideas to activate the prior. Okay, let me just say that it is important for us teachers to activate students' prior knowledge, background knowledge, or pre-existing knowledge, because when this kind of knowledge is accurate and is enough, it will help with learning, right? So there are a few techniques and things that I do to activate the prior knowledge of the student. So the basic one is to ask them right away. So if I were to teach them about elephants, so I would just ask the question right away. This way it's faster. Like, do you know what elephant is? Do you know what sound it makes? Do you know what color it is? And things like that. And this is one of the way to check their background knowledge. And also what I did was do you have you ever heard of the terms write the room?
Yeah.
Right as in writing, write the room. So this one is activity. So I would tape the poster around the room, and then I would write the topic on each poster. And when students come to class, I would ask them to walk around the room and write what they actually know about that certain topic that I was about to teach. So this way I could gather information on, okay, they already know this one, they don't know much about this one. And that's
to elicit the background knowledge. That is interesting.
Many ways to do that.
Cool. And it can work, it's so much fun in classroom. And how about group game? Would you please share your techniques to activate your students in teaching English, please?
My technique is quite similar to Kru Pikov, because I use a gallery box. Have you heard of that? Gallery box? Yes, but in an easier way. I give students post-it note, sticky note, and allow them to draw or write anything that they know or they want to know from the topic that I provide them in the classroom, and use gallery walks. Whether on site at school, we use post-it sticky notes on the boards, but in online we use a Jamboard, Google Jamboard. Yes, so student can join brainstorming what they have known about it or what they want to know, to learn from this classroom. So that is quite similar to KruGov.
Yeah, and I used to use the World Wide Web Mentimeter. Have you guys ever tried it?
Mentimeter. So, yes. What crowd?
Yeah, and it's anonymous, right? Anonymous, so students can share the prior knowledge, no matter how much they know about the contents, right? So they don't need to worry about it because it's anonymous. So, okay. And how about you, Kukai? So, what do you think about the teaching methods of the two teachers, and would you please add up some of your techniques, for us to improve our students in the context of Thailand? So
I listened with great interest to the strategies that are used by KruGame and KruGov, and I think there are a few similarities. I think, for example, the first thing is to make very clear the intention of the pre-test. I think that was what KruGame said, to have an assignment to test for prior knowledge, and then to make sure that gives you an accurate reading of what's happening with the students, and therefore we can close those knowledge gaps. And I think importantly for both KruGov and KruGame is this element of peer learning. So learning from each other, knowing what each other can support your friends, your colleagues, your friends and your classmates in terms of your learning of the English language, not colleagues, classmates, right? But I think there's something that I want to also just share. I think that when it comes to activating prior knowledge, I think earlier, KruGov did say that KWL is very common now in Thailand. Many teachers use it. So the thing about activating prior knowledge that I didn't quite touch on in my sharing earlier, it can be very demoralizing, very disappointing for the student to say that I know nothing about this. And then when I have to learn from somebody else who knows everything about it, the classroom becomes even more, shall we say, unfriendly to that person. So how do we maybe find a way to activate prior knowledge without making our students feel insecure or vulnerable? So I think earlier, Tony talked about using Mentimeter and having that word cloud on the screen.
Yes, anonymous.
I'm a big believer of that. I think that doing simple things like a word splash and not correcting for spelling or grammar, letting students just, free flow their ideas in a creative way, that'll be wonderful. In the same vein, when you activate prior knowledge, think very carefully about the questions you're asking. If the questions are very basic yes, no questions, and it's no to everything, the student can be very easily demoralized in your classroom. So find a way to maybe ask them, instead of yes, no questions, maybe on a scale of 1 to 4, how well do you know something? All right, so that will soften, I would say, the classroom for the students. And the other point that I want to share is this, so prior knowledge as teachers, right? Important to us because we want to know what students know. But when you find out their prior knowledge, you will also discover what they not know. Right? Now, there is a third category. So they know things, they don't know things. There's a third category that is so important. The things that the students don't know that they don't know. They don't know that they don't know these things. Right? And for the first time in your classroom, they're hearing these things and they're like, I didn't even know that this thing existed. So for example, in KruGov's earlier sharing, if you're teaching students you said earlier, in the middle of nowhere, and you teach them vocabulary. For example, you tell them shoes. There are many different kinds of shoes. There are loafers, there are trainers, there are stilettos. And your students actually don't even know that they don't know these things. They can be very scary. Yeah,
they didn't even know the word pizza and hamburgers, and I was surprised.
And it can be very scary to them because you
can buy them
to
to try the test.
I'm not that good. Period.
Learn from authentic material.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. But you see my point that it can be very scary for them because through the use of language, you are actually telling them that there is actually a whole world out there that they don't know about. And it can be very scary for them. So teachers, my friends in Thailand, when you activate prior knowledge, when you test for prior knowledge, be very gentle with your students, be kind to them, recognize that there are things that they know that they don't know, and critically things that they don't know, they don't know. So when you do KWL, what do you know? What do you want to know? What have you learned? I know that there are many variations that have maybe been built on KWL. What I like to do as a teacher is after doing KWL, let's now ask reflective questions. So now that you have learned these things, how has this knowledge changed you? How has learning this thing maybe helped you? Or in what way would it make you a better person? When I used to run it,
the problem is just that, I believe most of the Thai students don't really like reflecting things, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah. So, teachers, this is where I would encourage you. Yes, there is the time and place for us to be English teachers, to check for spelling, to check for grammar, to check for sentence construction. But when it's reflection, let's maybe take off that teacher's lens. Let's take off our teacher's glasses. Let's let them reflect. And if your students are very good at maybe writing lyrics or writing, short phrases or short poetry, or if your students are very gifted at drawing cartoon strips, let them do it. I know that we're running short of time, but I have one strategy that I want to share with everybody.
All right.
When we teach English language, we often are very hung up about getting things right, getting that tick in the classroom. And sometimes students just need that opportunity to be creative. If you know the taxonomy of skills that Bloom has designed for teachers to create, to generate things, is actually the highest order of thinking.
The highest level.
Yeah, so you need to consider this, right? In the use of English language, students need to be creative as well. If you want them to write creatively, you need to give them the opportunity to create. So what I used to do for my students, you can be creative with this, right? So if it's a Friday class, I will call it Free Friday. If it's a Tuesday class, I will call it, Tuesday Mavericks. Think of a name for yourself and explain to your students why is it Free Friday, why is it Mavericks Tuesday. And what I do is I give the students a stimulus, or I give them a sentence or a word, and I tell them, respond to it on paper in whatever way you want. You can write a short essay, you can write a poem, you can do a comic strip, you can even draw something in response to it. It need not be words, but I want to see a creative response to this stimulus. And when I mark it, I don't put ticks. I don't put ticks, I write comments. Like, that's really interesting, a perspective. Yeah. And
if you don't put ticks, what do you do?
I would say it is a very positive feedback for students. Well, and it's like a formative assessment. So assess for their improvement. So that is very interesting. And that's what the teacher should keep in mind, right, when assessing the students. So
so think about
that. I noticed an interesting comment from our audience. Well, the teacher found difficulty in motivating students to pronounce English words because they was afraid of pronouncing wrongly. So would you have any ideas to share how you motivate your students to pronounce the words, even they would pronounce the words wrongly? So
the first thing is teacher should model it. The first thing, teachers should speak English first. Some of Thai teachers, they don't speak English in English class. So I think the first thing that can make students be confident is to start from teacher. Let's speak it out, and try to change our student attitude toward mispronunciation. Not toward using English. It's okay to make mistake. Just say it. Just shout it loud. Any words is okay. It's okay to make mistake. Yes.
Yeah. If you believe me, in Singapore, pronunciation is also a challenge. So for us, the national examination for English, there are different papers. There is the comprehension paper, the reading paper, there is the writing paper, there is the listening paper, and then there's the oral communication paper. And for the oral communication paper, there's a reading extract that you have to read out loud to the examiner. And our students are very good at being dramatic when they read, one fine day, but it's the pronunciation. For example, the long vowels, right? The hard consonant sounds. I think it's really important again to recognize that when we expect our students to read in a certain way, to enunciate and to pronounce things properly, that's not very normal for them. Because even when I speak to my friends in Singapore, we don't always pronounce our words accurately or properly, So we need to also accept that this is not always the normal way to speak or converse. But having said that, it's also important, therefore, to share with them. So when is it important to get the pronunciation right? So maybe it's when you're speaking to a foreigner who may not understand your native language or your accent or your slang or your pronunciation or your expressions. Maybe it's when you're going for a job interview and you have to interview in English. So it's about that need for code switching or context setting. And I agree entirely with Kru Game earlier. Just encourage students to use it and to use it freely. In one of the schools that I taught many years ago, I had a principal who was a real visionary, somebody who was super motivational, super inspiring. Every day in school, when the school starts, when the school gathers for assembly, every day one student will come in front of the whole school, and that one student has 1 minute to share one idea to make the world a better place. And the student can say it in any way that he or she likes. It can be about vegetarianism, it could be about recycling, it could be about, political activism, whatever else, right? It could be any idea, and you can be as interactive, as informal as you want to be. But because they were going out to the microphone, they all want to learn to pronounce the words properly because they recognize that it's the microphone, they want to sound good, The other idea that the school had was they had a reading competition. And they asked students to read out loud extracts of a book to teachers. And if the students got a star from the teachers, and if they accumulated, a bit like Kru Golf, right? If they accumulated 10 stars, they would get cinema tickets and popcorn.
Wow.
Wow. Teachers, there are, many people saying thank you for sharing your ideas. And they love your ideas a lot. And so they say like, thank you. So well, and one says, really interesting. Thanks for sharing a fruitful and insightful talk today. Wow. So we're really grateful for your kind words, everyone. And well, okay. Well, and this brings us to the end of our today's session. Well, on behalf of insKru, I would like to thank you, all of you, for joining us today and sharing your valuable viewpoints and teaching methods, right? And also inspiration. Well, I believe that the talk today would inspire a lot of teachers to arrange their lively English classes for their students. Well, and lastly, well, I would like every one of you would share a quote, maybe, or last words. So for our audience, so could you please?
Key takeaway.
All right. And about Kru Kai, would you like to leave something for our audience in Thailand?
I would love to, but I think Kru Golf wanted to say something earlier.
Okay, Kru Golf, so please do.
It's just that you were talking about the pronunciations, but in Thailand, there's big problems about the accents. people tend to bully each other about you've got a really bad accent, your accent is not right, it's horrible. But I just want to say that accent is not important as much as the pronunciation. Okay, every accent in the world is beautiful in its own way. You can speak English in Thai accent. It's beautiful as long as you get pronunciation right and correct. Yeah.
We need to separate. We need to separate.
Accent is Thailand, and it's really frustrating.
So that's interesting. So it's very important to separate the correctness of pronunciation and the way our accent is, right? So if the teachers can convey this message to the students, right, to know the difference between pronounce correctly and accent. So just be happy and love your accents, right? So all accents are beautiful. Well,
every accent is cute.
Yes.
Yes, we can say Thai accent. Okay. Yes, we can say
listen to my English accent.
Thai accent like hello, my name is Saharat. I am from Thailand. It's okay, right? It's cute. As well as we understand each other.
That's the key of communication. So, well, thank you again, all of you, that you spare your time and make this talk powerful for the teachers and very inspiring. Well, and thank you everyone for watching our live video. So from homes or workplaces on insKru fan page. Well, we really appreciate your support. Well, and don't forget that we have activities for you to join our talk here. So you can write your teaching methods or ideas on worldwideweb.insKru.com นะครับก็นะครับฝากย้ำนะครับทุกท่านที่ชม insKru นะครับมาถึง 20:30 แล้วนะครับโหคือต้องบอกว่ามีคนเกาะติดนานมากแล้วก็คืออยู่กับเราตลอดเวลาครับ so many people are still with us Kru Khai. So now 1 hour and a half, so many people watching on a live video, and I believe that there would be a great deal number of people so watching this live video. And นะครับทุกคนครับก็ฝากทุกท่านนะครับที่รับชมไลฟ์วิดีโอนี้นะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นไอเดียที่ทุกท่านนะครับได้จากการพูดคุยในวันนี้นะครับในเรื่องของการสอนภาษาอังกฤษอย่างมีประสิทธิผลนะครับเราอาจจะไม่ได้ใช้ grammar นะครับเต็มร้อยกับนักเรียนจะทำยังไงให้นักเรียนเนี่ยสามารถเป็นผู้ใช้ภาษาอังกฤษได้อย่าง effective นะครับหรือว่ามีประสิทธิผลสามารถสื่อสารได้นะครับหรือหากท่านมีนะครับไอเดียหรือว่าวิธีการสอนเทคนิควิธีต่างๆนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นที่ท่านนะครับได้ create ขึ้นมาหรือที่ท่านพบเจอแล้วนำมา adapt apply เป็นของตัวเองเนี่ยหรือแม้กระทั่งวิธีการที่จะเข้าถึงหรือเชื่อมโยงความรู้เดิม prior knowledge ของนักเรียนเนี่ยกับบทเรียนที่คุณครูเนี่ยได้สอนนะครับก็เชิญชวนคุณครูผู้สอนวิชาภาษาอังกฤษทั่วประเทศเลยนะครับตอนนี้ insKru นะครับได้เปิดตามหาไอเดียนะครับที่นะครับผมได้กล่าวไปนะครับซึ่งวันสุดท้ายนะครับของกิจกรรมนี้ก็คือวันที่27กุมภาพันธ์นะครับก็คือวันพรุ่งนี้นั่นเอง
พรุ่งนี้
ใช่แล้วครับก็วันนี้เนี่ยไอเดียบันเจิดมากนะครับได้จากคุณครูทั้ง3ท่านแล้วก็อย่าลืมนะครับแท็กนะครับพิมพ์ข้อความนะครับว่า English Breakfast นะครับสำหรับกิจกรรม English Breakfast นะครับแล้วก็อีกกิจกรรมหนึ่งก็คือ English PLC สำหรับการร่วมแลกเปลี่ยนเรียนรู้นะครับในกิจกรรมวันนี้นะครับทุกท่านสามารถที่จะแชร์แล้วก็ติดแฮชแท็กทั้ง2นี้ทั้ง2แฮชแท็กนี้ได้เลยนะครับโดยอย่าลืมนะครับไม่ต้องใส่แฮชแท็กลงไปนะครับก็ทุกท่านพิมพ์แล้วก็ในเว็บไซต์ของ insKru นะครับก็จะขึ้นแท็กให้ทุกท่านเลยนะครับหรือว่าไปติ๊กที่ช่องเข้าร่วมโครงการ English Breakfast ก็ได้นะครับซึ่งทางทีมงานนะครับก็จะนำไอเดียของท่านเนี่ยไปพิจารณานะครับแล้วก็เราจะมีการตัดสินนะครับแล้วก็ให้รางวัลนะครับกับผู้ที่มีไอเดียที่แบบนะครับเราสามารถที่นำไปใช้ได้แม้กระทั่งนะครับทุกท่านที่ส่งข้อมูลนะครับตัวนี้นะครับก็สามารถได้รับ certificate จาก insKru อีกเช่นกันนะครับก็นะครับinsKru นะครับต้องขอบคุณผู้ติดตามทุกท่านเลยนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นคุณครูที่สอนวิชาภาษาอังกฤษนะครับหรือว่าคุณครูที่สอนวิชาอื่นๆนะครับ ก็ขอบคุณมากๆเลยนะครับทาง insKru ต้องขอบคุณทุกท่านนะครับที่ร่วมกันในวันนี้และหวังว่าจะได้รับการซัพพอร์ตนะครับการสนับสนุนจากทุกท่านนะครับให้พวกเราเนี่ยมีพลังที่จะขับเคลื่อนการศึกษาของไทยนะครับวันนี้เป็นการเปิดวงคุย PLC เป็นภาษาอังกฤษล้วนๆเลย 100% เลยนะครับก็หวังว่านะครับการพูดคุยวันนี้นะครับจะเป็นประโยชน์กับทุกท่านแล้วก็ท่านสามารถนำไปปรับหรือประยุกต์ใช้กับวิชาภาษาอังกฤษหรือวิชาอื่นที่ท่านสอนนะครับ so we would like to say thank you everyone for watching our live webinar on insKru fan page today and we really appreciate your support and hope to see you again soon. Well, thank you all the teachers, Kru Golf, Kru Game, and Kru Kai
Thank
from
you.
Singapore for joining us today. Well, insKru would like, hope to see you again soon. Kru Kai and Kru Golf, Kru Game, thank you so much.
I really want to just encourage everybody, I think as teachers, be gentle, not just with your students, but also with yourselves, so you teach them a language, you do your very best, but look after yourselves and remember when you teach them a language, at some point they will leave our classrooms. So teach them the skill so that they can also learn the language on their own after they graduate. Yeah.
Yes, being a lifelong learner.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. Okay, namaste. Thank you for the opportunity.
And to those of you who
Thank
are
you,
watching,
everybody. Thank you so much.
Stay strong and keep the fire burning.
Thank you.
Keep the fire burning and going. Are we done? No?